Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Parkrose Community United Church of Christ. You're visiting. I'm Don Frueh. I'm the pastor, and we are blessed to have another pastor with us this morning, Reverend Loren McGrail, sitting here in the front, who has served how many years? 5 years as a missionary for the United Church of Christ in Palestine, and to Palestine, in Jerusalem, and Palestine. She's going to talk more about that later, so you'll hear more about that. But I'm excited to welcome Lauren here this morning. And everybody who has joined us as we gather, we offer our respects to the ancestors and descendants of the original people of this land, and we invoke their presence as we welcome everyone, whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey. You are welcome here. I invite you to stand as you're able and join in our opening song, Sovereign God of all creation. Every creature and all Sovereign God of every creature, maker of all things that are, carver of each atom's features, sculptor of each sun and star. We your people pause in worship, grateful for your loving care. Guard us with the Spirit's thunder, show us how to do and dare. Take away our lazy pleasure, pride in actions of the past. Send instead in fullest measure peace that witness holds the last. Teach us graciousness in giving, echoing your lavish hand. Teach us faithfulness in living, here as stewards of your land. In Christ's strength would we be serving, building up the least, the lost. By your grace forgive our swerving, when we hoard or count the cost. Show us each how much we need you in our worship, work, and play. Knit together all who need you, all who hear your call today. So may we respond with vision, challenged by your worldview. Hearing not each hard decision, we must aim for what is true. Lead us not into temptation, give us fasting and instill. Christ our strength and our salvation, Christ our sure foundation still. Please take a moment and greet those who are here.
Good morning, how are you? Merry Christmas.
Good morning, you two.
least we'd see the original. That would be short.
I can do that. I can.
I invite you into a time of prayer, and we'll begin with our centering song, Holy Spirit, Santo Espíritu. Pray together in one voice. Gracious God, we are surrounded by a world where human life is often not valued. Give us faith and vision to learn the ways of peace and to put them to use in all of our relationships. Give us ears to hear one another's stories and hearts to provide welcome and care. Make us fully aware of how we are connected to all of creation, and open our hearts to the possibilities we see in one born in a simple nature. Come to us in the silence. We respond together. We hear your call to treat all life as sacred, and we have faith in new visions of peace and justice. Holy Spirit, be with us, we pray. I'd like to invite the young folks to come forward with Erica as we light the Advent candle. And I'd like the ushers to bring one of the candle lighters for us, please.
Good morning, everybody. Today we light this candle as a sign of our continued faith. Follow the star to the baby and follow the baby to the cross. The love faith story has just begun. Go and take your part in the unfolding of that story in our world.
Sing together the one verse. Loving God, in this time of preparation and planning, we thank you for the hope and faith you unfailingly offer us. Show us the creative power of hope. Teach us the patience of faith. Prepare our hearts to be transformed by you, that we may share the love Christ shows us. Amen. So young folks leave, I'll take down another portion of the wall so that we can begin to see that manger in Bethlehem.
Born today in a manger on the
invite Barb to come bring us the passage this morning from the book of Esther.
The reading comes from the book of Esther, chapter 4, verses 12 through 16. Queen Esther has heard the king's edict to kill all Jews, and now she has a difficult decision to make. When Mordecai heard Esther's reply, he wrote back the following response: "Don't fool yourself into thinking that just because you are in the imperial palace, you will be the only Jewish person to escape. If you insist on remaining silent at this time, vindication and liberation will come to your people through another source. Both you and your family will surely die. Who is to say, you may have come into the royal court for such a time as this?" So Esther sent a message to Mordecai: "Bring together all the Jewish people in Susa now and fast for me. Do not eat or drink day and night for 3 days. And after that, I will go to this sovereign in defiance of the law. If I die, I die."
You might be saying, why are we talking about Esther in Advent? Well, we follow the narrative lectionary in this congregation, which focuses largely on the Hebrew Bible, especially in the fall part of the year. And this is a wonderful story, which probably isn't really history. But I want to quickly share the story with you and focus on what I think is the main point for us in this place today. The story of Esther, in Hebrew Hadassah, is a rather complicated one. Esther and her cousin Mordecai, who was more like an uncle to her, were part of a group of Jewish people who remained, in fact, migrated into Persia after the Babylonian exile. So scholars think this story was probably written in the 1st or 2nd century. And it's actually a novella. It's not history, it's the story. And so the story was that Esther and Mordecai were part of this group that remained further east. They didn't go back to Jerusalem. Now, the main characters in this story are really hilarious. If there ever was soap opera in the Bible, this is it. So Ahasuerus was the king of Persia, and this was his tagline: "I'm the king and I'm rich and cool. This guy is the bumbler." And he couldn't seem to do anything right. And he surrounded himself with people who took advantage of him and tried to gain power from him. Vashti was the queen, and Ahasuerus threw a 180-day-long party, 180 days long. And some of the male guests made a specific request that was not very nice. And he thought, yeah, we'll do that. And he needed Vashti to show up without any clothes on. And she didn't want to do that. She thought that was disrespectful to the king. But she was caught in this battle with herself. So she says, how can I please my king? I'm really in a fix. She eventually did it and then was asked to leave, because the king got upset that she appeared naked except for the crown. Okay, so the next character, Esther, through a course of events, the king is, well, now what happens is they have a beauty contest to pick the most beautiful virgin in Persia to become the next queen, now that Vashti's gone. And Esther joins the contest, and she says, I'll help my people. I can be the queen. She kind of has an ulterior motive here. Maybe. We're not positive about that. But she goes, becomes the queen. She wins the contest. Then Haman is the arch enemy. He's the villain. And what's cool about this story is it was, some believe, was invented to support the Jewish holiday of Purim, which happens in the springtime. And part of the tradition in Purim is that they have the whole Megillah, which is a scroll, You have to read the whole Megillah, the whole scroll, and hear the whole story. And when the bad guy comes out, everybody boos and hisses and stomps. And when the good folks come out, they cheer and yell. It's a hilarious holiday. It's one of the funnest holidays in the Jewish year. So Haman is the bad guy, and he develops this plan. He says, I hate the Jews, I will kill them all. And he's aiming to get power from the king, who, thanks to Mordecai, figures out that Haman's after more than just his blessing. Haman wants to take over. So he orders, the king in the meantime, orders Mordecai to be impaled on this big pole, and it turns out that Haman winds up getting impaled on the pole. You can tell the story goes on and on. Okay. Esther, at this critical moment that we heard today, Mordecai says to her, you have to go convince the king not to kill the Jews. Well, Esther's also in a fix because she can't request to see the king. He has to call her. And he's already done that recently, so she can't do that. So she knows that it's possible if she requests to go see him, she'll be killed. So Mordecai's trying to convince her, saying, you are called for such a time as this. All of the complications included. You need to go. And she finally agrees, and she says, if I die, I die. Amazing, amazing story. Now, Esther, I just read this recently. I never thought about this before. Esther is the trickster. You know, the trickster in Native American history and all kinds of Native cultures. The trickster is the one that flips the story. In some ways, I think Jesus is a trickster because he flips the story on its head. But Esther is the boundary crosser here. She crosses where she's not supposed to go. And in the end, it all works out for her because the king says, okay, come talk to me. And she convinces him that it's Haman that's the bad guy, not the Jews. So the order is lifted to kill all the Jews. They celebrate. All's well that ends well. But the critical piece for me that speaks to me and hopefully to all of us is we too are called for just such a time as this. And my time in Palestine recently has proven to me that I am called for such a time as this. I don't know what that means. And as we're celebrating faith as our Advent candle for today, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. So all the pieces may not be lined up, but we need to step out in faith. Remember, the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty. So, my friends, we are called, just as Esther did, for such a time as this. One of the pieces that I hope we will continue to learn as a congregation is the olive tree song, which we sang while we pick olives in Palestine. I don't know if you know this song. You know this one. And we've sung it once. We're going to sing 3 of the verses again today. So you can remain seated. Nikki, did you play it all the way through once to remind us? And then we'll sing 3 verses of the olive tree song. The olive tree is the symbol of hope for Palestinians. It's a symbol of life. It's a symbol of peace. It is the iconic thing that says Palestine. And so that's why it's so important for us to celebrate the olive. Amen. As we share from our own abundance, we are committing to the work that we are called to do for just such a time as this. Ushers will now receive our offering. Come to another time of prayer where we invite you to share the prayers that are on your own hearts this morning. What do you bring with you?
Great gratitude for the lovely holiday tea yesterday and for the bakers and makers who made all the things and the servers and the laughers and the singers, and it was a wonderful event.
The laughers.
Yes, there was a lot of laughing.
There was a lot of
I think
laughing.
it's good.
Many thanks to everyone who helped in the holiday tea yesterday. It wasn't wonderful time together. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
On a sadder note, prayers of comfort and peace to the Birch family and to the Anderson brothers family. We had the son of 25-year-old son of one of our managers killed in Salt Lake on the 30th.
What was his first name?
Ryder Birch.
Ryder Birch. Prayers for the family of Ryder Birch and for Ryder, who, 25-year-old young man, took his own life in November 30th. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
I also ask prayers of comfort for the family of Ed Clulo, a longtime member of Eastminster Presbyterian, who passed on Friday morning. Ed used to sit back where Travis sits now and do the audio-visual things. So prayers for Ed's passing and for his family. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
I'd like prayers for our friend David May, who is in Emmanuel Hospital right now. They're doing some tests. He has some health issues with his back, and they're doing some tests. So prayers for his healing, and that they can find out what to help him with.
Prayers for David May as he undergoes explorative treatment to find out what's really going on with his back, and for Chris and his wife. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
Prayers for Mark Hansen, my sister's brother-in-law, who is suffering from stage 4 brain cancer.
Prayers for Mark, who's suffering from stage 4 brain cancer. Prayers for him, for all those who are treating him, and for his family. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
I'm aware that 185 people today will commit suicide. That's in the USA. And this is going along to a large degree where suicide is part of our life in the USA. I also drove by several people living on the sidewalk in tents that I don't know the answer for that, how we take care of those people. And I am concerned our government doesn't seem to have the answer.
Amen, brother. Prayers for all those who are considering suicide, for their families, and for those who work with people who are considering suicide. Also prayers for those who live in our city streets and for searching for some kind of, it's not even really a solution, just how do we deal with all of this for such a time as this. God of love.
We thank you for your presence.
Let us pray together. Holy One, we open ourselves to you in this time. We ask you to be with those we've named aloud by name and with all those we hold close to our hearts. May we be your agents as we share your healing and care with all of those we meet. And may these ones feel a tangible presence in their lives of your care. We continue to pray for those who live on our city streets and search for food and shelter, and most of all, I think, relationship. And relationship is something we can do, as well as food and shelter. Help us be part of the solution here, God. Help us to find ways that we, as individuals and as a congregation, can reach out to those who don't have a house to sleep in. May we, again, bear your love to them in real and tangible ways. In a world that seems to have gone astray so badly, we pray for wisdom for leaders, that they can find new understanding that we are indeed all connected, that every single one of us belongs to each other person. Help us remember that, and help us speak truth to power for leaders who forget that. Help us to risk as we raise our voices in many different ways for just such a time as this. We pray for all in our congregation who are suffering at this time of year, which should be a happy, joyful time, but for many it is not. Help us to be patient and understanding, and to reach out in love to all who struggle to get through this season. All of these things we ask in the name of our brother and teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, who taught us to pray together in these words from the Gospel of Luke. Abba God, help us to honor your name. Come and set up your kingdom. Give
each day the food we need. Forgive our sins as we forgive everyone who has done wrong to us. And keep us from being tempted. Amen.
I invite Loren to come share with us in our peace moment, our expanded peace moment.
What a wonderful pleasure it is to be here with you today. And singing the olive tree song actually makes me homesick for Palestine. It's the first time I have been out of the country at this time of the year in 5 years. So let me give you my official introduction that I've been schooled to say, so I get it all right. So this is how it goes. So I'm Reverend Loren McGrail, United Church of Christ pastor. I serve global ministries of the Christian Disciples of Christ and the United Church of Christ. I served in Israel, Palestine with our mission co-partner, the YWCA of Palestine. I also served as an ecumenical associate with the Church of Scotland, which is what allowed me to stay there. The Church of Scotland has been able to secure clergy visas for most of the mission personnel, both in the United States and in England. And without them, I would not have been able to stay 5 years. So I stayed 5 years or 3 terms. The first term being 2011, when I went with the World Council of Churches and stayed for 3 months and worked as providing critical presence and accompaniment to Israelis and Palestinians working on a just peace. We'll talk a lot about that other stuff after the service, but I put together something I have not done before. Normally I give this somewhat extended presentation, but I've decided to put something focused on children. I mean, after all, we're going to be celebrating in the next few weeks the birth of a very special child. And so I thought it might be interesting for you to hear about what is happening to the Palestinian children today. Also, because our church, along with other churches, has passed a resolution that calls attention to how the Palestinian children are being treated. And we have made a commitment as a church to try to do something about that. So what you're looking at, this is so interesting to see. This is one of my art pieces. I'm also a new artist. I make something called assemblages and occasionally other things. This is a chessboard that I created with Israel versus Palestine. So the Israel side has basically bullets and tear gas canisters. The Palestinian side has little rocks and seashells and things of this nature. So I learned enough to play chess with a friend of mine who allowed me to win most of the time, and then said, actually Palestine is not winning, I should teach you stalemates. And then we played, so I learned about stalemates. The lectionary for the day in the non-narrative lectionary is focused on John the Baptist. And so I thought to bring a little bit of a word about him. This image is from Ein Karam, which is the town where John is said to have been born. It's also the town that celebrates the meeting of Mary and Elizabeth at the Church of Visitation. It's a beautiful place. And that picture on the right is a camel walking through the Judean desert. And one of the things I learned by camping out periodically with Bedouins is that when you go for a walk, you do not go straight. You follow the path of the camel. And the Israelis also follow the path of the camel. So most of the roads that we take are camel paths that become, and the purpose is to follow the contours of the land. So with that, I wrote a little essay last year, somewhat in conversation, I was going to say disagreement, but conversation with the text that says make straight a highway for our Lord. Because once I learned this about how the camels go, it's not straight. And maybe all things straight we should question. In the wilderness of your lives, I invite you to follow the way of the camels, the ones who follow the contours of the land. When the mountains rise, climb them. When the valleys dip, go into them. Share the road with others, and if need be, fix the road together so all can travel safely. Follow the contours of the land. Don't change or destroy it. Follow the paths of those who have gone before you. They know the way. Let your preparation for the coming of God with us be an opening to follow rather than a call to change, fix, or destroy. Fear not your imperfections, your crooked, rough places, your unsmooth thoughts, your splintered or broken heart. God welcomes you just as you are and asks you to do the same for others. Follow the contours of the landscape of your wild life. God will meet you there. Let this be your preparation. So, you have created here your creche and the wall as symbolic of what Bethlehem is like today. And there have been many artists who've come along who've wondered if the Holy Family themselves, or the wise ones from the east, or even the shepherds, could they get into Bethlehem? Because Bethlehem is completely surrounded by a very big, thick wall at the moment. So this image reminds us of the Bethlehem today. This is a picture of Manger Square right now. Every night the trees are lit, the big tree in the square is lit, and Bethlehem is the place to be in this season of Christmas. And one of the beauties of living there is if you miss the first Christmas, the one that comes on 24th, 25th, you have two others to go. You get to celebrate with the Orthodox Church, which celebrate on Epiphany, and you get to celebrate with the Armenians, which is a little bit later, which is around the 20th or so. So Manger Square keeps welcoming the patriarchs that come in a procession to the Church of Nativity. These are images from inside the Church of Nativity. The frescoes, the mosaics have been basically completely refinished in the last year or so, and that is one of the angels on the left. And when you go down to the grotto, there's actually a place on the floor that is said to be the exact place where Jesus was born. You can enter that, whatever spirit you do. But you will get one of these pictures of Mary with little Jesus, and of course the animals right there. These are children, because we're focusing on children, from the YWCA of Palestine. This is from the Jalazun refugee camp. And delegations who come, we often bring them to the camp to see the children's program for two reasons. Particularly if you're from the United Church of Christ, it gives us an opportunity as the Y to thank you, because the global ministries dollars support the children's programming in the refugee camps. But I also like to listen to the delegation folks, because I'll hear them, and this is 2 or 3 days into their tour, and they go, they look just like us. And yeah, they do. And they drink this juice. You know how kids have this juice smell in their room with their little crumbled cookies? Just like that, and the smell of that weird glue that they still use. And And it brings people back home to their own memories or to their grandchildren. And then if I'm with them, I'll say, so remember these faces, because when you go home and you do the hard work of peacemaking, it is for them. It is for this generation that we are working for a just peace in the Holy Land. And they are indeed your children. And so are these children here. So when I'm doing a presentation, we won't have a chance to do this interactively too much, but you see how they're sitting there? Do you know what's going on in that picture? Have any guesses? A school without walls. Do you know what happened, maybe? Well, yes, it could have been bombed. That does happen, but actually this is more common. What happens is that Palestinians are not given permits to build. Like 99% of them are never given a permit to build. So they build anyway. This school was built actually with European Union euros, but because it didn't have a permit, it was destroyed. And so the kids still go to school. When I showed this picture in Defiance, Ohio, in a college, I said to the students, I said, so if this building was destroyed tomorrow, would you show up here and sit in your little desk? And I went, no. So for Palestinians, this is also an image of samud, of steadfastness. These children are from the village of Al-Khan Amar, which is a Bedouin village just outside of Jerusalem. You may have heard this already in Don's talk. Okay. And so these children are waiting, hoping that the Israelis will not come and destroy their school and their village. The Supreme Court passed a ruling when I was there in May, basically giving permission to destroy the school and the village. The school because it had built, again, without permission. And that school is built with tires and mud because they had hoped by building with unusual materials that the school would be able to stay. We can talk a little bit more. It's a very important case. It has not come to pass yet. It's on pause. The demolition order has not been canceled. The International Criminal Court from the United Nations has given warning to Israel that if you go ahead, this will be seen as a war crime. If it's a war crime, then the entire world has a responsibility to act. And to act would mean, amongst other things, to break off relations with Israel, to impose sanctions. So hence the pause. This, unfortunately, is a picture that's become kind of iconic of what happens often to Palestinian youth. First of all, there's this excessive use of force. This young man may or may not have picked up a stone. You can be arrested for picking up a stone. You can be arrested for throwing a stone. There's actually a law that says that's possible. There are about 400 youth who are in jails as we speak today. Most of them are in for stone throwing. Most of them admit, whether it was true or not, that they threw a stone, because if they don't, they can be held under administrative detention for up to a year. And we're talking youth from age 12 to 17. This is why the United Church of Christ, the Episcopal Church, the Methodist Church, the Lutherans, everyone passed resolutions in 2017 saying this is no way to treat children. And that's because it is inhumane. It's also against international law. And luckily for all of us, and I hope it will be reintroduced, Betty McCollum from Minnesota introduced legislation into Congress to say that if it's found that the United States is using its military aid to support the imprisonment and torture of children, then we must remove that aid. She had 30 signatures by the end of this congressional period. We're hoping she'll reintroduce the bill. And I'd like to invite each of you as a church, as individuals, to work on your congressional representative to support that legislation when it comes back around. When I last checked, there was no one in the state of Oregon who had signed on to this legislation yet. You have everything going for you. You understand the issues, you have a resolution from the church. It should be easy from that perspective. I have no idea who your representative is. I've heard that that is not always so easy depending on who they are. These children are holding a sign of Ahed Tamimi. She is from the village of Nabi Saleh. Nabi Saleh is right outside of Ramallah. It has a spring. The settlers want the spring because if you control the water, you have everything. So the village, which is all the Tamimi family, have been resisting for years. Ahed is now 17. When she was 16 years old, the soldiers came to her house, as they have done before. They shot at her cousin, and when they were in the courtyard of the house, she slapped a soldier in the face. Her mother filmed it. It went viral. The Israeli army, IDF, were very angry at this, and they arrested her. She was in prison for 8 months. So she became this iconic symbol of resistance all across the world, but particularly in Palestine. When they came out, her mother gave a statement to the international press calling them racist. Do you know why? Look at the picture of Ahed. She's beautiful, blonde, green-eyed young girl. She said, you only spoke because she looks like you. There are plenty of Palestinians in prison with dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin, and you should be concerned for all of them. I thought that was quite interesting that her mother, also in prison, made that statement, a reminder to all of us. This little girl is Jana Tamimi. She is 12. She is Ahed's cousin, and I simply adore her on so many levels. The first time I met her was International Women's Day. My friend and I had come to make a lunch for her and her mother. She likes fettuccine Alfredo. We were going to make it from scratch. We brought all the ingredients with us. And when we sat down, she heard I was a minister. Do you know what her first question was to me? Why do you worship a torture symbol? I mean, wow. I mean, theologians have been talking about this for centuries. And so this little 12-year-old asked me this question. So thank you for asking the question. I'm going to have to give this a little bit of thought. But one of the things I did do, partially as a kind of response to her, you see all the tear gas canisters behind her? Those are all shot at the villagers. So she gave me a whole bunch of her tear gas canisters, stun grenades, live bullets, all kinds. So I made this cross down here that you see an image of on the table. So I have not really answered her with words, but I did make a cross out of all the bullets that are shot at Palestinians. And I'm still figuring out the theology around that. So that was my answer to Jana. Jana is also the youngest reporter in the world. She has a YouTube channel, and we're all very worried about her because she's now the age that Israel can pick her up. The only thing that might save her is that her father is Palestinian American and she has an American passport. These are children diving off a fishing boat off the coast of Gaza City. Now normally this would just be a really fun picture. It's a summer day and all would be well. But the problem is that this water is completely polluted because Gaza has 4 hours of electricity a day, which is not enough power to run the sewage treatment system, so all the sewage is going into the water, which means these children will be very sick. Gaza has now, I think it's down to 99% of no clean drinking water. It all has salt in it. It is said that by 2020, Gaza will be uninhabitable, in part because of no clean water. Others say this has already happened. So we're talking about 11-year blockade. And with a wall that is not only being built on the perimeter, not the border, because there are no borders in Israel, there's also a wall being built in the sea 3 miles out that would keep the Gaza fishermen from being able, under international law, to fish the 12 miles off the coast. My suspicion is that it's because the natural gas off the coast of Gaza is out near the 10th mile. And so if there's a wall covering the coast of Gaza, then the Gazans would not be able to use the much needed resource of natural gas. Somebody put this picture together. I'm very interested in the way images can move us and tell us something. So those children are taking a bath in a bombed out house after the attacks in 2014. And that could be your bathroom, my bathroom in the United States. So as we bathe, we do normal things here, this is not always the case, particularly in Gaza. And they learn to live in the rubble. These children are part of a resilience training in Rafah. I've been able to go into Gaza with the Church of Scotland to visit their partners. So the nearest Council of Churches has programs in resilience training. And what these two girls are doing is that when things happen, they are to find at least one other person, and they are to stick together as buddies and to make it through whatever is happening. And they also learn to do this thing for trauma. It has to do with pounding your chest. And it's a way to calm themselves down. It's quite moving. These are some of the faces of children who were killed in this year. This is a roundup of a certain kind. And I want you to just remember their faces, because I'm aware now that I'm back that the news you get from there usually is about a Hamas missile that is going over the border into Israel and threatening Israelis, which is not okay. It's under anyone's view, morally and legally, it's never okay to target civilians. But I think what you don't get are these children, the ones who were standing in Gaza at the Great March of Return, or who were like the baby up in the front who was killed from the fumes from the tear gas. And we all should be sobered by this. This is not something that only Israel does, given that we just gassed children and women at the border of the United States with the same tear gas company making the same tear gas canisters. This is an image from the Bethlehem wall. It was done by a friend of mine. Remember the women and children. This was used for a Christmas card of a kind from the YWCA one year, as I called on their behalf for the world to remember the women and children. And we're here at the end of my little time with you. Those tear gas canisters are my attempt to make Christmas decorations for myself. When I was back in the US with my daughter, we would do things that I think you probably do, you know, pop popcorn and strung popcorn and cranberries. So I had this little cedar bush that I brought into my house, and then I had an olive tree actually, and I thought, I'm an artist type, I'm gonna just decorate with whatever I've got. So what do I have from Jana? I've got tear gas canisters, so I'm just gonna paint them. So I'm not sure this counts as swords into plowshares exactly, but it is some version of that. So I'd like to end, and we'll talk after the service, with a prayer that I wrote at the beginning of this Advent season that takes some of the really challenging images of Advent, of the human one, the Son of Man, Christ coming like a thief. These are, in any season, kind of challenging. And I'd like to share this final prayer with you. Come, human one, Advent our lives. Come like a thief in the night and disturb our sleep, our comfortable realities that say you can have peace without justice, that say taking someone else's land or life is not our concern, that says it's okay to violate human rights, break international laws. Break into our lives, Son of Man. Challenge our certainties. Make us vulnerable to the urgency of your call for a new Jerusalem, a beloved community here and now. In this place where the streets still run with the blood of the martyrs. In this place all call holy, all call home. Help us, unexpected one, to become insomniacs, to keep awake, alert, and watchful for the ways that your coming can be thwarted, obscured, or denied by theologies that privilege certain groups as chosen, by peace processes that deny the right of return, that don't demand the freezing of settlement building or walls that separate and divide. Christ the thief, come take away our fears and our insecurities. Prepare our hearts, our minds, our spirits for your indwelling presence, your incarnation as a baby, a refugee, our brother, our Redeemer. May we become uneasy and alive, unafraid and able to hear angels announcing or singing. May we become your Advent lights of hope, peace, faith, and love. And may it be so for each of you and for this community to live into this blessing, this Advent season. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you, Lauren. And as she said, you can continue this conversation at coffee hour time. You can go next door, get coffee and refreshments, and you're welcome to bring them back in here. We're replacing the carpet before too long, I think. So don't worry about that. And I know Lauren has much more that she is able and willing to share with us. So thank you again. Our announcements are on the back of the program. Thanks again for all those involved in the tea yesterday. If you want to purchase poinsettias to either in memory of or in honor of, those forms are in the entryway. I made a few more packs of the Advent cards, so they're there. I know we're already 9 days in, but these are cards with short sayings, and they're not in any particular order. You can shuffle them and read them in any order you wish. There are several in there that this year that came as a direct result of my visit to Palestine. So, our longest night service we will be sharing with Bridgeport this coming Thursday. Bridgeport UCC, 821 Northeast 76th Avenue. It's just north of Gleason. If you know where Highland Christian Center is, it's just across the street and down from there. So, movie next Saturday, the Won't You Be My Neighbor movie. The Peace and Justice team is sponsoring that. Christmas treats and bakes, so you're going to talk about that, all right? And our Christmas Eve service is at 5 o'clock on the 24th in this room. And it's the ABCs of Christmas. And Lauren was sharing with me a great book of the ABCs of Palestine, and I think we might borrow some of those for our sermons. All right. Also, next Sunday is the Mary Sunday, where we remember Mary. We celebrated Guadalupe last year, and I think she'll find her way into our service again. Also, we ask you if you have a manger scene, a creche, that you'd like to share with others, bring it, and we'll display them all on a table in Eastminster Hall during coffee hour next Sunday. So bring it with you before service and set it in there, and we're not going to sell them. You can take them home. You're sharing the opportunity for us to experience them. So anybody who wants to do that, hopefully this will be the start of a tradition. All right. Cammie has announcements. Anybody else have announcements? Okay. Mark?
The group that Gene and I sing with, we're having our final concert in the venue where we're at, and Saturday the 15th and Sunday the 16th. The 16th, Gene and I have tickets and a poster out on the money changer's table.
And the name of the group is?
Blueprint Arts.
Blueprint Arts, thank you. Travis. AJ's the musical artistic director.
It's not too late. Our Seats and Feets fundraiser is still going, trying to collect undergarments and socks for...
Why do you look at me when you say that?
Just making sure I'm saying the okay words. Sorry, PD. Anyway, it's not too late. We're going to be hauling them off to Snowcap, I think, towards the end of the week. But if you're late, no problem. We'll make another trip. So keep looking for those great deals. Somebody could use an extra pair of socks or whatever. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Trav.
Friday, December 21st at 11:30. Lucy and I are hosting a Christmas lunch for all of the women of the church. If you're working, see if you can't make your lunch hour make time over your lunch hour to come and join us. It's for every woman in this church.
Also, if you want to come to the Square Riggers dinner, see Lucy to make a reservation. Robert and I will be there. Just like that. That's all it takes. That's tomorrow night.
All right, well, not only did we have a lot of fun at the holiday tea, we did all right with our fundraising too. So we counted $1,309 that we brought in yesterday, and might be a little expenses out there, but most of that's going to be for the coffers of the church. So thank you very much for all that came and donated to the food, as someone lifted up earlier. And it was a great event, and we kind of like that, so we might do it again next year.
I don't think you have a choice.
Yeah, it's a good thing. All right, so now that's done. On to the next thing. So next Sunday is bake sale. So we're going to have our treats and goodies for the bake sale, and that means I need some volunteers to bake some goodies, or it could be savory treats as well. And then, so if you are willing to bring something, let me know. Just kind of gives me an idea to see what's going on. If you don't tell me, that's all right, just bring it anyway. And then next Sunday in the during coffee hour, we will have the table displayed, and then your job will be to purchase some goodies and have a little bit more of a fundraiser, one last fundraiser to sneak in before the end of the year. So, and it's a tasty way to do it. So, thank you.
All right, I invite you to stand as you're able as we sing our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth. And I want you to read carefully. It says, let it begin with me. didn't just go to church. We are the church. Go in peace and live in love as we sing our song. Remember, it starts with the low voices.
Require